Okay guys, back on the YouTube. Today I'm going to be discussing hybrid training, but more specifically using hybrid training, balancing strength training and endurance training in order to aid a physique goal. So I'm going to run over why I believe this is it is a very effective way to train if you're working towards a physique goal. I also think it's incredibly enjoyable if you like this style of training, which I'll get onto in a second, and I'll use an example of how I used hybrid training this summer to get into the best shape that I've been in, and I've managed to maintain it ever since. So if you are new to the channel, some people are coming through YouTube, some people are coming through Instagram. Just a little bit about me. I always think it's important to provide a little bit of context before I start kind of preaching and talking about things in terms of training and nutrition. So I've got 13 years of strength training experience, worked with hundreds of clients at this point, in person and online. My background is a personal trainer, predominantly functional fitness and exercise rehab and corrective exercise. So most of the clients I've worked with have looked to build muscle, lose body fat, improve their performance, and currently have an online coaching brand called Athletic Aesthetic. And pretty much everyone we coach train hybrid, so they balance strength training and endurance to some degree, and most of their goals are around physique improvements and also performance gains, hence the topic of this video. So if you are new to the concept of hybrid training, I think it's important to kind of understand what that is. It's flying around a lot in the industry at the moment, and it's quite a broad term. It can cover a lot of things, so I think it's important to kind of hone in on what that actually is. But essentially it is just balancing strength training and endurance training to some degree. Now that is, as I said before, quite a broad spectrum. So I always talk about the hybrid training spectrum in these videos when I'm talking about the style of training, and it's very important to understand kind of where you sit on that. So what I mean by that is you might have someone who is more physique focused, bodybuilding focused, and let's say they train 5 days a week. They might be doing 4 strength and bodybuilding sessions a week, and they're just doing 1 run a week. That would be kind of more towards the physique end of the hybrid training spectrum. And then conversely, you might have someone on the other end who is more endurance and performance focused. So they might do 3 runs a week, and then they might do 2 strength training and bodybuilding training sessions to purely just maintain their physique and actually just prevent injury with running. So at the moment, I would say I'm kind of in the middle. So I've got a marathon coming up in 4 months' time, but I obviously want to stay jacked, maintain my physique, still improve my strength. So that's kind of where I am at the moment, and I believe I'll kind of be there for the foreseeable. I always want to have some sort of performance running race or triathlon in the diary, but at the same time, I always want to maintain my physique. I never want to lose muscle. So what do we mean by a physique goal? So generally, using the example of most of our clients, the people that we coach, a fat loss phase, a lot of people will come to us wanting to lean down, lose body fat, and be more confident in the way they look. But then also we attract some guys who want to go into a lean gaining phase, who want to build muscle mass. Generally, most of the clients that we have doing the hybrid training come to us with a fat loss goal, so they're working through a fat loss phase. Because hybrid training, because of the kind of frequency of training and the style of training that you're doing, it does come with a high expenditure. But having said that, we have had some clients that want to build muscle and do endurance work at the same time. That's just going to come down to them consuming enough calories to actually put them in a position to build a lot of muscle. But most of the people that I'd say we coach, we upgrade their kind of training anyway. So even if they are in a little bit of a calorie deficit, they do actually tend to put on muscle. It definitely is possible. So yeah, generally with hybrid training comes a high expenditure. So if you are doing hybrid training, you're going to be training multiple times a week. Like, that's just something that you're going to have to accept, and something that you should probably want to do if you want to do this style of training. So most of our clients would do between, I would say, 4 and 7 training sessions a week. You wouldn't have anyone doing any less than that, because there's not really scope to build muscle and improve endurance on any less than 4. And we have had also people do more than that. So for example, we've had a few people prep for half Ironmans, marathons and things like that, and they've done more training sessions, but that is rare. Sometimes double days, i.e. doing 2 training sessions in 1 day, that will really depend on the individual, what their schedule is. I like to double up some days and then take a full rest day off. I found that my performance and recovery improves when I do that. So for example, yesterday I did an easy run in the morning, and then I hit an upper body training session in the evening. As I say, this is specific to the individual, and it will depend on their goal, their fitness level, time availability. So If you are wanting to build muscle and train for a marathon, you're probably going to need to do a couple of double days in there. If you're training for a half Ironman, you'll definitely need to do that. Having said that, some people are not quite, fit enough, and they don't have the recovery capabilities to handle 2 training sessions in a day. So yeah, as I said, it really does depend on the person. But if you control your nutrition, which I'll get onto in a second, hybrid training can be an incredibly effective way to make a fat loss journey easier, because obviously through the amount of training that you're doing, you've got high expenditure, so if you control your calories, you can find it fairly easy or kind of simple in theory to enter a calorie deficit, which is obviously essential if you're wanting to lose body fat. You've got to be burning more calories than you are consuming in order to lose weight and body fat. So just wanted to use the example of myself. So it's November now, but this summer I combined, a physique goal and a performance goal at the same time. I wasn't really training for the performance goal because of the physique goal. I just wanted to do both at the same time. I wanted to challenge myself. So I prepped for a photo shoot for 10 weeks where I dropped a lot of body fat, and I was also training for a half marathon at the same time, which I then did in September. So the photo shoot ended kind of at the start of the half marathon prep, but I was running alongside my strength training the whole time. So I was doing 4 strength training sessions a week, 2 lower body sessions, 2 upper body sessions, just focused on building strength on the main compound movements, hitting squats, deadlifts, lunges, pull-ups, shoulder press, chest press, rows, things like that. And I was also doing 4 runs a week. So for the majority of that prep, I think it was 2 speed sessions, an easy run and a long run. So it was quite taxing in terms of the running. So again, expenditure was high. I was working with a physique coach to help me prep for this photo shoot, just purely for accountability. And he, gave me a flexible meal plan where we were staying in a calorie deficit the whole time. Now, obviously, I am a coach myself, but I do work with coaches myself because I just find that accountability is incredibly effective for getting you to where you want to be. So he kept me accountable to that calorie deficit. I programmed my own training, my strength training, my running, and we managed to take 5 kilos of body fat off. And I did that photo shoot at around 78 kilos, and at the moment I'm around 78.5. So I've managed to keep that off through controlling my nutrition since then and keeping my expenditure high. I'm in a kind of a lean gaining phase now. I think a lot of people think when they start hybrid training, because as I've said, it comes with high expenditure, there's a lot of activity, people think that they're going to suddenly become very lean and they're going to be shredded. It definitely does not equal that. I will tell you, I've probably been leaner when I was younger, when I did no cardio, and I certainly found it easier to maintain that level of body fat percentage when I wasn't doing any running. And the reason is, obviously, when you increase your expenditure through a taxing form of cardio movement like running, your appetite will massively increase. So that's definitely important to note, that if you are wanting to do hybrid training, you've got to understand that you will need to manage your appetite. Most people anyway, like some people, their appetites aren't quite as kind of like high as some people. But for me personally, I found that when I started running a lot, I actually gained weight because I was eating intuitively and listening to my appetite. I actually put on like 3 kilos. So that's something I've really had to kind of pull in, and I've been learning a lot about this over the last few years, and kind of the way that my body responds to that. So as I've said, high expenditure can lead to high appetite, and I probably would not recommend eating intuitively if you have a physique goal. So if you want to lose body fat, if you're willing to kind of stay the same weight or even maybe put on some weight by listening to your appetite, then that's totally fine. But if you're wanting to drop body fat, you'll definitely need to be controlling your nutrition. And I mean, you should be anyway if you are training in this way, because it's all about fueling for performance. Like, there's not many people that would probably consume the right amount of protein and the right amount of carbohydrates at the right time of day around their training if they're eating intuitively. Very few people. And I've seen that with a lot of people I coach. We really do have to control their nutrition in a good way though, optimizing it. As I've said, you will probably overeat on some days. You'll find there'll be some days where you undereat and your performance will suffer, and there might be some days where you overeat and you might end up putting yourself into a calorie surplus, which is obviously opposite of what you want to be doing if you're looking to lose body fat. Another important consideration is fueling for performance, which I've kind of almost kind of mentioned in the last slide. So when you are training for performance, obviously alongside your physique goal, you very much have to view the food that you consume as fuel. And I mean, you should be doing that anyway, even if you were just working towards a physique goal. So, 95% of the time, you need to be consuming high quality, nutrient dense whole foods, building those meals around proteins and clean carbohydrates, and not going excessively high on fat intake. What I've also found as well, Generally, I eat incredibly clean, 95% of the time. But let's say if I had been for a meal out, a pizza or something like that, and I was running early in the morning, it can lead to digestive issues, and it can ruin the run. It can ruin your performance as well. So when you think of it that way, when you think of the food I'm eating is going to fuel my performance the next day, you make much better, much more informed nutritional decisions. And generally, with the clients that we coach and the way that I train as well, I would recommend a high protein diet, obviously to support muscle growth and muscular recovery. That should say moderate fat, and then high carb. So obviously you need a high amount of carbohydrates in the diet to fuel and replenish glycogen stores. And the reason that we want a kind of moderate fat amount, potentially even low, is just because, again, a high amount of fat is going to put more stress on the digestive system, and you want to be allocating the majority of your calories to protein and carbohydrates to help you recover and also perform well in your training session. So that is the rationale behind that. And a typical day of training for me on a high day where I'm doing a leg day, or maybe I'm doing an upper body session and a run, would be around 220 grams of protein, 400 grams of carbs, 8 grams of fat. So not excessively low on the fat, but at the same time not high, and a really good amount of carbs and a good amount of protein as well. I think it's really important to say as well, don't copy others and don't jump into this style of training just because you've seen someone else do it who's in really good shape. It's a taxing style of training. It's going to take a lot of time, so it's really important that you do this because you want to and because you enjoy this style of training. I love hybrid training. It gives me the balance between strength training, allowing me to build on my physique and be confident in the way I look, but it also gives me the performance gains. It gives me something else to focus on apart from just wanting to look a certain way. And obviously it goes without saying, you get great endorphin release when you're doing cardio as well, and obviously it's great for your health to have both. So if you've seen someone else get in shape this way, it's probably because they really enjoy it, and at the end of the day, you need to do a style of training that you enjoy, because that's what's going to lead you to adhering to a program, and it's consistently adhering to a program over time and putting in the work that will lead to results. So yeah, and it's obviously important to stay in your own lane. Don't go out and start running 50-60k a week because you've seen someone else do it. But yeah, I hope that's been helpful. If you are interested in finding out more about how we do things and how we coach our clients to improve their physique and performance at the same time, you can follow me on Instagram. You can drop me a message there, or you can inquire for coaching through the link in my bio, which will also be attached at the bottom of this video. So yeah, hope that was useful.